Good afternoon. I'm Emma, Marketing Executive at Eclipse. Thank you for taking the time out to attend our webinar entitled Meet and Exceed Your Reporting Requirements with Sharperlight. Presenting this afternoon is Duncan Wyeth, Director of Channel Operations at Sharperlight, who will provide an overview and demonstration of the solution. I'll be back in around 45 minutes to take any questions you may have. I'll now pass you over to Duncan.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, good afternoon everybody. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your diary to take a look at Sharperlight today. You should all be able to see on the screen in front of you a homepage that just displays a little bit of information in a dashboard environment which is produced by Sharperlight. What I'm going to do over the next half an hour or so is explain a bit about what Sharperlight actually does as a reporting solution, and it's not just a reporting solution, as you'll see. I'm going to show you the kind of output you can produce with Sharperlight, how you can use Sharperlight to dynamically and directly drill into your data from within Microsoft Excel, and how you can produce reports in Excel that can then be distributed to other people within your organization to automatically refresh the data as soon as they open the workbook. We'll talk a bit about how you can manipulate data in Excel and manipulate data with Sharperlight as well, and how you can use Sharperlight to extract data from multiple data sources. I'm going to take you now into the query builder, which is the body of Sharperlight. So if I just open up my menu and select Query Builder, the Query Builder is the common user interface throughout the whole Sharperlight product. Anywhere you're building a query, whether it's to produce a report or whether it's to take data and populate a database, you will do that using the Sharperlight Query Builder. And the Query Builder sits in three distinct panes. At the top we have the filters, and this is going to tell the system what data I want to get and where I want to get it from. So the first selector is the mode. Do I want to do an aggregation report, which is effectively a single cell report to produce a single value in, say, an Excel spreadsheet? Do I want to look at a summary report, a detailed report, a reference, which will go away and look at text, or a lookup report where I can produce kind of mapping data, if you like, and build a URL on the fly? I'm going to work with a summary report. Which product do I want to work with? These are the available products that I've got on my system. So I've got a sample dashboard data, which is actually what the dashboard in the background is being driven by. I've also got a number of cubes that I've built. These are separate databases where I've extracted data from an underlying system, and I've put that into a separate database so that I can mash it up and play with it without fear of upsetting the actual data in the ERP system itself. And then within the Query Builder, we've got a selection of tables. So which tables do I want to work with? And these are the standard tables in Sun Financials. But if I come back to the transactions table, or in fact the ledger, if I just take the ledger, it's going to drive some filters. So by selecting a particular table, the system automatically starts to put some filtering into the query that we're going to build. So it's asking me, which account period do I want to work with, which account code, and which ledger. And again, if I just open up the ledger, you can see that there's all the ledgers within your Sun Financial system. So we'll stick with the actual ledger for the moment. Within there, I've then got a number of selections I can make, and this will allow me to go and get the data and select that data. So account code, and let's just start with the account code and the transaction amount. And if I just pull through the account code and transaction amount and hit preview, it'll drill into my Sun database and automatically pull through those balances. So very quick, very simple. I've got some data and I've put that data into a query, and I can use that query to go and further analyze my data. In fact, from here, if I right click on this and say drill down detailed, I can now start to do a detailed drill down into here to, let's say, look at the accounting period. So I've got the transaction amount, the accounting period. I'll take the account code. Let's just push the account code up. So I've got the account code, accounting period, and transaction amount. And if I click on OK there, that will actually put the data into our Explorer tool, which allows me to start to slice and dice this data by saying, well, just give me the accounting period, drop it up here, and now you can see that I've actually filtered it by account period. So I've got the account code, the account periods, and some balances. Now all of this is standard within the product. It's unlike many other products on the market. You're not having to buy individual components. Sharperlight is sold as a single product. You buy one product and you get all of the functions of Sharperlight available to all of your users. And it's up to you to determine who can create queries, who can publish queries, and who can just view queries. So once you've built the query, having built these queries, we can put as much information in the outputs as we like, and I'll show you some samples in a minute as to what we've done. To actually make that query available to a user, if I wanted to put it into Excel, I can do a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to do here is copy my query to my clipboard. If I now open up Excel and just take a clean workbook, so say File, New, blank workbook. Anywhere in my clean workbook, I can open up Excel. You'll see immediately within Excel there is a Sharperlight add-in. Now it's important to point out that the Sharperlight add-in is a native Excel add-in. It's not a .com add-in, it is native, and we try, wherever possible, we try to work with the Excel functions. So we don't override the table functionality in Excel, and we don't try and change the behavior of Excel. And that's quite important because it means that the users of Excel can stick with the things they're used to and use their skill set in Excel without having to learn another set of skills to make things work. I've got an option here for table. If I click on the table option, it will automatically open up Query Builder. Now I could, from here, just build a new query and it would populate the Excel spreadsheet with that data, or I could right-click and say Import Query from Clipboard, and our simple queries come through. Again, I can preview from here. I'm happy with the data, click on OK, and it'll put that into Excel for me. It's a very simple way of going and getting data from within Sharperlight and dumping it into an Excel spreadsheet. If I start with a fresh table, so if I just remove what's in here, if I start with a fresh report, I can work through a number of scenarios where I build this kind of information in Excel. So I've got here a trial balance. This is run from a single query. I can open that query up. You'll see that this is a single query built in exactly the same way. And we're just selecting the ledger, the accounting periods, the account code, and the account type. What we've done here is actually bind the accounting period in Excel to the filter in the report. So if I change this cell in Excel, it will change the report itself. So if we just go in here and change this to, I change this to period 6, that's changing the data in the report. So that report is driven by this cell. As I say, we're picking up the information, outputting the account code, description, account type, and a number of other output fields to create these columns. What we've got here is an output field where we just changed the name of the output field and we've applied a filter to this output field. When we create these report packs, some of these reports are table-based. As you see here, this is a single query driving this particular table. But when you get to things like a profit and loss report, you'll work with cell-based queries where each cell has a query that's getting data for that cell. So we've got here the actual values, we've got the budget values, but we're using Excel to do the calculation for the variance. We could calculate that in the report itself, but if we use Excel to do the calculation, again, as I said earlier, we're just using the standard functionality of Excel that the users are familiar with. And the same applies here. We've got the period, we can change the period, and we can change the business unit as well. So if I select a different business unit, you'll see the data changes on here. Okay, go back to PK1 and it refresh the data. So using Sharperlight to build these reports, once we've built that Excel report, and this is a report pack containing multiple reports, we can do a couple of things to distribute that report to our end user. The first is that we can simply send them the Excel spreadsheet. All of the queries are embedded in the spreadsheet, and if we were to just send the workbook to another user, provided that user has the ability to access Sharperlight and it has the authority to see the data, they can open the workbook and they'll view the data in the workbook, and it would automatically refresh that workbook when it's opened. If you want to send that workbook to people so that they can just view the data, they can't change anything in it, you can also publish it. And Sharperlight has a publisher function. This is publisher. When you create a query, you can send a query to publisher and it will create a published query where you've got full control over what the user sees. So within publisher, we're controlling who has access through the security panel, whether we want to restrict editing to a particular user or a group of users. We can also expire a report on a particular date. So if a report relates to a particular period, when that period is closed, then you can expire the report. We can define how the report behaves. So the default report view, which would either be a table, a chart, a pivot table, we can output as RSS feeds, and you'll see at the bottom we can actually output an Excel report, and I'll show you that very shortly. You'll see Excel in the web. For those individual reports, we can determine whether we want to enable the prompts. So do we want the users to be able to change the filters? Do we want to submit the prompts by default, so when they open the report up it will automatically submit? We can determine the behavior of a table, so the size of a table. We can change background colors, table rows, lots of things to enrich the user experience. We can also look at the charts, so if we output information as a chart, what chart type, again the chart size, whether we want to show legends. Some very interesting reports that have come out recently about how to present data in dashboards, particularly, that it's not always necessary to show a legend on a chart. A lot of people get carried away with what a report looks like, and they lose focus on what a report actually contains. And simplicity is becoming the watchword for producing BI-style reports. We can output as a pivot table. I'll show you a sample of a pivot table in Sharperlight shortly. And then, as I say, we can actually publish an Excel workbook. And I'm going to show you a workbook. In fact, I'm going to show you the workbook we're working on now, published in the web. A couple of other things we can do. We can cache an cache a report. So month-end report pack is a great example. It's always worthwhile caching a month-end report so that whenever users are looking at it, they see one common view of the truth, and they're not seeing different versions of the report because they've refreshed it at different times. And then finally, in Publisher, we get these links. Now, it's important to understand that Sharperlight is a web service, and we generate a URL for reports and for each version of that report. And this is what's used to build the dashboards and to publish data to the web. So on that, I'm now going to go to the web channel, and I'm going to show you the kind of stuff that we can do in the web channel for publishing reports and giving you access to reports. So if I open up Internet Explorer, we work with any web browser. The most common ones are obviously Internet Explorer and Google. We do work on mobile devices. We work on tablets. You can run reports in Sharperlight on an iPad. You can also run them on a handheld device. What I would say is at the moment the software doesn't automatically detect the device and then change the view, so the view has to be determined for the device you're running it on. But if I open up the Sharperlight data model service, the remote service for Sharperlight, this is our web view, and in here I can view all of my published queries. If I click on that, I'll get a list of all the queries that I can view, and in there, if I click on this Sun report pack, you will see the Sun report pack. This is exactly what you were seeing a moment ago, the profit and loss report. If I click on the right option. And within that report pack, all of the tabs that you had in the Excel spreadsheet are available at the bottom of the report. So you see there's each of the tabs there, sales by product type, profit and loss report, debtor aging. That's done simply by having a copy of Excel running on the same server that the Sharperlight service sits on. It actually renders the Sharperlight web service renders the Excel report as an image to the browser. So you haven't got all of the functionality of Excel, but you've used Excel to do the charts and the graphs and the table layouts and all the other things that you might want to do within Excel. And you've simply published the Excel spreadsheet. So it's another way of giving people the kind of look and feel that they're familiar with and presenting that via the web. If I go back here and just show you a couple of other things you can do with the published queries, in true Blue Peter style, here's one I created earlier. And I've just produced a report here. This is running off the same Sun database that you've seen. On the left-hand side, we've got some accounts with balances, and on the right-hand side, we've got transactions. Now, I did mention that if you put the reports in the web, you can use the selected row for one report to drive the data in another. So if I select this row here, 25000, that's now driving this report here. And if I tap across to the end of the report, you'll see that the balance here, 181,64304, agrees to the balance here, 181,64304. Now that's one way of putting drill down into a report in Sharperlight in the web. You could also right click, and if I right click here, you'll see there's an option for new drill through. If I click on that, here's one I didn't check earlier, that would actually allow me to drive a drill through which is a sub query into that data, and I'll show you a couple of samples of that on a different dashboard shortly. So the report, select a row, that can drive an individual table here. It could also drive a chart or any other display that you want to put on those reports, and these reports can then be built into the dashboards. So if we go back to the dashboard that we had here, you'll see each one of these is a report, and if I open up the report view, it's simply running the URL for the published report. That's all it's doing, is picking up the URL from the published report. Okay, so I want to show you a couple of other samples of what we can do. I'm just going to pick up another report, so tab dashboard. With Sharperlight, you can either use Windows authentication or you can force the user to sign in. This is the kind of report that we can produce that pulls data together and displays that data to the end users in various different ways. And I've got a couple of samples here of a chart with drill through. So if I double click on the chart area and click on show details, it will drive an underlying drill through. I've got a tabbed sales analysis here where if I click on a particular customer name, it will show their sales details below. But I've also got some drill throughs on here where I can right click and say show me the line item details, and it will pull through the line item details for the selected row. But I can also say show me the customer sales by item, so just show me everything that we sold to that customer by item. Okay. I can expand the view of a tile, so if I select sales by territory and expand the view, that will show me an expanded view of sales by territory for my top 10 customers in each territory. And I can select a territory, and again, that's driving, in this case, this table and this chart that's below that particular report. And it's all done by selecting individual queries that you've built using the Query Builder. It's very important to remember that the Query Builder is what's driving everything in Sharperlight. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of other things you can do now with Query Builder in Excel and how we can start to manipulate the data. If I go into an Excel spreadsheet, open up a table, select the ledger. You have to forgive me, I'm not an expert on the data in Sun systems. I don't purport to be an expert on the data in any of the systems that we've got. I've got here accounting period all. I'm going to take the accounting period, I'll take the account code and the transaction amount, and I want to output this as a quick preview just to look at what's in here. So I've got 1999-01 to, so 1999 seems to be a good year to pick with some periods in and some data. If I go back to the query, you'll see that when I previewed that, I've got account period, account code and transaction amount. If I wanted to see the balance for each period for the account codes, one of the great things with Sharperlight is the ability to make a filter active and do something with that filter. So I'm going to take the account period as a filter. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to change the name on the filter to period and click OK. So all I've done is change the name on there to period. I'm going to take the account period out of my outputs and go to the transaction amount, and I'm going to open up that output, and you can see there's lots of functions I can build into the outputs here, but I'm just going to say apply the filter period and set that as dynamic. Okay, and so I don't get lots and lots of years, I'm just going to work with the accounting periods from 1999 from 1999 001, I think I've taken my number lock off, that was better, to 1999/012. Okay, and now if I preview that, see the difference in the output? I've actually got the filter name at the top, the period name at the top, and I've got the balances for each account by period, without doing any more than just renaming the period and making it active. And that's the same process that actually allows you to drive the individual reports that we looked at earlier, where we selected a row and that changed the attributes of a different table. So all we do there is change the output name to match the filter name on the sibling report, on the child report. So very easy to output that information. If I click OK there, that will obviously output the information into Excel. One of the things that you'll notice here is this is a volatile query. So if I try and change any of the information in here, as soon as I try and change it, it'll revert back to what it was originally. It's a volatile query and it will update the information immediately. If I wanted to detach the formula, I've got an option here that just allows me to click on detach formulas, and it will take that query away and allow me to use the data in Excel and do anything I like with it. From a publishing point of view, if I select no there and open the query up, the query remains in Excel as I said. If I wanted to publish that, all I need to do, go into filters, select publisher, create new, and give it a name. Let's call it Eclipse webinar. I can give it a title, accounts by period, and I could give it a report title, period balances. Okay, if I apply that, very simply apply that, that's now available for me to view through my web channel. A couple of things I can do. First thing is I can click on the links, pick up the link to the report. So if I just say I want to take the table and say copy, I can now open up a fresh page in my browser, click on paste. I just need to make a little edit here because I've changed my IIS server to my PC name and a particular port. Once I do that, hit return, and you'll see it will give me that data straight in a web browser. So you could just email the link to your colleagues, and they could click on the link and view the report. But the same thing applies if I go back to my Sharperlight web service, click on View Published Queries, and you'll see that the Eclipse webinar one is there. Click on that, and I can view it as a report, submit, and I've got the data. Now the good thing here is what we've done is we've left the accounting periods in the system here, so I could actually change that to read, I wonder if this works, I could put in, I don't know what the data is in the underlying data set, but 2000-001 to 2000-012, submit, and yep, we've got data in there for that as well. Okay, I mentioned earlier we can also use Sharperlight to extract data from the underlying system and push that data into another database. It's something we've got in Sharperlight called materialized queries. I'm going to do this very, very quickly just to illustrate the speed of it, and I'm going to select some data from Sun, which is not something I've done before, but I'm pretty sure we can make it work. So if I go to our menu, I just want to close a few things down here, tidy up the desktop. If I select Sharperlight menu and materialized query, and if I say new, the first thing it says is, do you want to create a database? The answer is yes, I want to create a database. I'm going to give it the same name, Eclipse webinar, and we'll just call it Eclipse. And I want to apply that and say edit tables, and this now allows me to create some tables in my database. And the way I do that is exactly the same way that I've produced a report. I tell it what I want to work with, so let's take some chart of accounts information. Let's take the account code, description, short heading, balance type, status, and I'm not sure if I've got a balance in here, I'll probably pick the wrong one. Okay, sorry, let me change that. Let's go to ledger and take the account code and the accounting period and the transaction amount. And if I say preview, get all that information, click OK, and that will actually write that data into a database. Now, we can create multiple tables within those databases, and we can create joins between those tables, and it's very, very easy to create a join. You just select the two tables, select the two fields, and it creates the join for you. The simplicity of it is, once I've done it, if I click on apply and say OK and close, if I now go to my query builder, let that load. Within Query Builder, I've now got the Eclipse webinar data model available for me to use to write reports. And in there, all I've got is the data that we selected. So there's two things that this allows you to do. The first is we can very quickly create a subset of our data that only our users view. So they don't have access to the full financial system. It's just a subset of data that they view. And the second thing is, because that's not stored in the ERP system database, the Sun Systems database, I can now mash that up and I can manipulate the information. I can do all sorts of things with it. And we can actually create a write back that allows me to write back to that data. So I can export this information into Excel. If I say close, sorry, preview that. I didn't put this into Excel, but I could take this data here, I could put it into an Excel spreadsheet, I could change the amounts by applying an uplift, and then I could write that data back as a forecast, which I can then use to report against. It's a very quick and simple way of going into your data, extracting it, putting it into a separate database, and then manipulating it in that database. So what you've seen with Sharperlight is a very simple way of producing reports in Excel, just get my web demo up, of producing reports in Excel, of manipulating those reports so that the the user can view the data, can drill into the data, can slice and dice the data, publishing those reports into the web, as you see here, and having the drill down functionality in the web so that you can get granular detail of the information if you want to present that to your customers. It's all secure. It's all done through providing a secure login which can be connected to your Windows authentication, or it can be a separate login. All of which comes in a single solution. There's no additional modules for Sharperlight, so it's just one product. It automatically installs the Excel add-in, so it's available to the users as soon as it's installed, and it's very easy to get it installed, up and running, and live within a matter of days. In fact, Gary's got some very good examples at Eclipse of customers that have put Sharperlight in and seen the benefits within a very short space of time. So that's it from me from a demonstration. I'm going to go back to Emma now. I think, Emma, you've probably had some questions come through. So do you want to raise those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as
Hi Duncan, a question has come in about cost. Just
okay.
wondering how much it would cost.
Sharperlight is sold on a per user license basis. We have two types of user, concurrent or named. If you contact Gary or Emma or any of the team at Eclipse, they'll give you pricing for the number of users you need. As a sample, we start with a single user license, which is £610 for a named user, and it's £1,500 for a concurrent user. And that comes down depending on the number of users you buy. So a 5 concurrent user license is £5,025, and that will give access to any 5 people within your organisation at any time. We do a subscription pricing model where you can buy the software over, you can basically rent it, and it's just active for the time that you're using it. And you buy a license for an individual data model. So if you're running Sun systems, you would buy a license for your Sun systems connections. If you wanted to add a third-party database, you'd buy a separate license for your custom data models, which is data models you've created. And the custom data models are typically, I think they're about half the price of the commercial data models. So a typical user in the UK would be somewhere around 10 concurrent users, and as I say, 5 user license is £1,025, a 10 user license is just under 10,000, it's about 9,300. But pricing, please speak to Gary, speak to Emma, and they'll arrange a quote for you.
Thanks, Duncan. I have another question, or I have a query from Leela. She would like to know about the joining of data. She hasn't asked a question, but I'm just going to unmute her now, see if she does wish to say anything.
Okay.
You heard?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hello, Duncan. Yes, the joining of the data, just to clarify, did you mean that you can pull in data, say for instance from a billing system, and pull in information from Sun, say for instance the budget database, and then join the data so you could then produce a forecast basically with the actuals and the budget, but coming from 2 different applications?
Absolutely. That's a perfect example of the kind of thing that people are doing with Sharperlight. What you would do in that instance, obviously you've got the data that's resident in Sun. You would create a data model over your billing system, which is very simple. You can create a data model in a few days to have a meaningful data model. You would use that data model to drive a materialized query to extract a table of data from your billing system, and you would use the Sun data model to extract a second table of data into the same materialized query from Sun, and then you would map, you would create a join between those two tables, so you've now got a single data source that's got your sun data in it, your billing data in it, and you can run a report from that. And in fact, if you wanted to get very technical about it, you could then do a drill through in the report that you produce from the materialized query that goes back to the source database to look for detailed information.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's a very powerful thing that it can do. One thing is obviously is training on that.
Yes.
Who provides the
It's
training?
all through Eclipse. Eclipse do everything for you.
Okay.
Eclipse are your Sharperlight partner in the same way that they're your partner for everything else. They will provide you with the software. They'll do your installation for you. They'll train you. They'll provide your support, and they will be there for you to assist you with developing your system further. And this is going to sound terribly salesy, but it's a fact. The support calls that come to us at Sharperlight are almost 95% of those support calls are, how do I? So I've written a report and it's not giving me any information. Obviously I'm not doing it right. How do I get what I'm looking for? And one of the things that we're finding partners are very, very adept at in delivering value to the customer is actually understanding what you want in a report in the first place. So I was with a customer quite recently in the charity sector, and they asked the question, who's going to convert all of our existing reports into Sharperlight? And the finance director sat at the table, turned around and said, nobody. Because if all we do is turn what we've got into a different version of it, it's not giving us what we need. So what we actually need to do is go back to the drawing board and say, what's wrong with the reports we've got, how can we make them better, and how do we do that in Sharperlight? And that's very important. It is all about identifying how you can improve your current reporting using the power of Sharperlight, and that's what the team at Eclipse are very good at doing. They'll understand your reporting requirements for you and help you on that path.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Because yeah, that's perfect. Exactly. Okay. Just in terms of testing, that having a sort of test version, that's Eclipse is that something we could have set up? Because we'd really like to have a play around, to be honest.
Everybody likes to have a play around. I'll make two comments on evaluation. It's evaluating it. Try before you buy.
Yeah.
Two comments on that. Yes, it can be done. I am in no position to say whether it's right or not. Gary and Emma and Richard know their customers far better than I do.
Yeah.
What I will say is that the one downside of the try before you buy approach is you really do need to put a budget in there for some training so that you're properly trained when you're evaluating the product. And yes, we can do that. Buy the services, get trained, and then if you're happy that it's doing what you need it to do, you can add the licenses on. But a lot of people just buy a single user license, plug it in, switch it on, get the training, and then add more licenses as they need.
Yeah. Okay. It's only because I'm sure you've heard this before. Some of our things are not straightforward. We'd like to understand that it will actually sit on some of the applications I have in mind. So yeah, no, I totally understand.
Yeah. What databases do your applications sit on?
They are SQL.
They're all SQL.
Yeah, certainly, yeah, they are SQL. The ones that would want information coming in from.
Then if they're in SQL, we can get to them. In fact, we did one for an Eclipse customer not that long ago that was on, I think it was on SQL 7 on a virtualized NT4 server.
Right, okay. I'm happy the database is on SQL and information can be pulled from them. It's the actual application I'm not as totally as confident in. in terms
Yeah.
of the way it works with its audit tables and things. So that's what I'd like to
Yeah,
check to see that's a good idea to link it directly as opposed to actually pull out, because presumably if for whatever reason something doesn't work for you directly, you can still just have a file export and load the data into Sharperlight, or for Sharperlight to pick up from an export file as opposed to
we will
on top of the application.
Yeah, we will typically we'll work with live production databases, but we can just as easily work with you know, a data cube, a data warehouse. You know, we can pull data in a variety of forms. It is possible to actually put a Sharperlight data model over an Excel spreadsheet. It's not advisable, but it is possible. So, provided there's a data source, yeah, we can work with the data source.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Thanks very much indeed.
You're welcome. Emma, have you got any other questions there?
No further questions, Duncan, no.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm leaving the conference call. Bye.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.